What if the love you keep defending is actually the wound you've been trying to survive? Have you ever found yourself stuck in a relationship that hurts, but you just can't seem to leave? Maybe you've tried more than once. You've told yourself, this is it. I deserve better as you pack your bags and move out. But then in a few hours or a day or two, they apologize, they promise to change, or they love bomb you, reminding you of the good times, flooding you with words and gestures that feel like the love you've been aching for, the love you've always ached for. And there's just something inside you that wants to believe them. So you go back, you stay, and the cycle repeats, not just once, but over and over again. If this feels painfully familiar, I see you, and I also know this cycle well. Today, we're going to talk about something so often misunderstood, something many of us mistake for love or loyalty or commitment, but it's not love, it's not loyalty, it's not even commitment, it's none of those things. It's something entirely different. It's what is called trauma bonding. Many people think trauma bonding means two people connecting over shared pain, but that's not what it is at all. A trauma bond forms when someone keeps hurting you and your nervous system confuses that cycle for love. Hi, I'm Carrie McKenna Reese. I'm a trauma recovery coach, an educator, and a survivor of complex trauma myself. And for years, I stayed in relationships that tore me apart emotionally, not because I didn't know they were hurting me, but because part of me believed love was supposed to feel like that. It wasn't until I learned what a trauma bond actually is and why it forms that I finally began to see the pattern and, more importantly, break free from it. That's why I'm here with you today. You deserve to understand what's really going on so you can reclaim your power, your voice, and your life. So let's walk through this together. I'm not speaking from a textbook. I didn't just study this, I lived it. I've stayed when I should have left. I've been the one who left and went back. I've stared at my phone waiting for an apology that would let me stay. I've confused pain for love. I've cried in secret and smiled in public because I didn't know how to explain the kind of love that truly breaks you. I've made excuses I knew didn't hold up because walking away felt more terrifying than staying. So if any part of you sees yourself in this, I want you to know I really do get it. You're not crazy, you're not weak, you're surviving something that was never your fault. So here are 8 signs it's a trauma bond and not love. Number one, they're incredibly charming at first. Who has experienced the charmer? Toxic relationships, they rarely start out toxic. In fact, some of the most dangerous connections begin with overwhelming charm, affection, and attention. It's that love bombing I mentioned earlier, an intense rush of validation, interest, and affection that can feel intoxicating. You might feel like you've finally found someone who really sees you, someone who gets you, who listens deeply, who showers you with attention you've longed for your entire life. And in that moment, it's easy to believe this is it. This is the love I've been waiting for. They mirror our values, they say all the right things, and you find yourself letting your guard down. You believe it's real because it feels so needed. It feels like soul recognition, like the missing piece of your heart just fell into place. But here's the trap: it's not sustainable. It was never about who you are. It was about how quickly they could gain access to your heart, your mind, your nervous system. Once they sense that you're emotionally invested, the mask begins to slip. And slowly, a different version of them starts to emerge. And by the time the damage becomes obvious, we're already emotionally invested. And that's what makes it so hard to leave, right? Their true colors don't just peek through, they blaze. They're like the brightest crayon in the box or the biggest star in the sky. It's undeniable. Except instead of warmth and wonder, What starts shining is control, criticism, or emotional volatility, and you're left spinning, trying to reconcile how the person who made you feel so special is now the same person making you feel small and unworthy. Okay, number two, they're emotionally unpredictable. We never really know who we're going to get, right? One day they're sweet and loving, they open up just enough to show you a small, tender, vulnerable side. And in that moment, hope flickers. We think, maybe this is the real them. Maybe we've turned a corner. But then the next day they're cold or irritated, or they shut you out completely. Sometimes it's subtle, a sharp turn, a sharp tone, a look, silence, or the withdrawal of warmth and affection. Other times it's obvious, they lash out, criticize, or blame you for something you didn't even do. This emotional whiplash keeps you on edge, right? It teaches you to scan the room before you speak, to monitor their moods like the weather, right? Because how they feel determines whether we feel safe enough to relax. And over time, our nervous system starts to associate chaos with connection. It confuses unpredictability with intimacy, and chaos becomes the glue in our relationship. We begin to associate those intense highs and lows with closeness, not harm. You might even feel more attached to them when things are unstable because the relief when they're nice again feels like love, right? It's what society calls fighting to make up. But it's not love. It's your trauma response trying to make sense of something unsafe. It's survival mode dressed up to look like attachment. And that kind of connection doesn't soothe your soul. It hijacks your nervous system and calls it home. Number three, you find yourself making excuses for them. We start to explain away their behavior to others, right? Or maybe just ourselves. We say things like, they've been through a lot, they didn't mean it. They've just had a bad day. We hear the words coming out of our mouth, and part of us wants to believe them because if we can just justify it, we don't have to face what it really is. We don't have to feel the pain of realizing that the person we love is hurting us. But deep down, something aches, right? Because if someone else was being treated the way you're being treated, you'd be concerned. We would want better for them. And yet, here we are, rationalizing, minimizing, defending, not because we're naive, not because we're weak, but because the trauma bond trains you to protect the relationship at the cost of yourself. And over time, you start to believe the problem is you. You start believing maybe it's your fault. Maybe this is just what you get. The belief is the wound talking, not the truth. You stop trusting your instincts, your boundaries blur. And if you grew up in a toxic home, if you were abused or neglected as a child, chances are you were forced to self-abandon really young. Your own intuition got derailed in your need to survive. I know mine did. We learned to normalize mistreatment, to call it love, to call it loyalty, to call it patience, because we didn't have the wisdom or the power to know better back then. We were doing what we had to do to feel a sense of safety. But this isn't love. It's not loyalty. It's not patience. It's the slow, quiet unraveling of your own voice while trying to hold on to someone who keeps pulling you apart. Okay, number four, they take their pain out on you. When things go wrong in their world, we become the target. They lash out, they blame, they make us responsible for their moods, their outbursts, their emotional state. And somewhere along the way, we start to carry it. We internalize their bad days as our fault. We walk on eggshells trying to manage their emotions so things don't escalate. You're not here to be someone's emotional landfill, their punching bag. You're not here to absorb pain that was never yours to begin with. It's not our job to absorb someone else's anger, their feelings, or insecurity. It's not our job to fix their pain, hold their shame, or calm their storm. But if you were taught that love means enduring pain, if you learned early on that being close to someone meant being useful to their emotions, this pattern might feel familiar to you, even justified. Maybe as a child, you were the peacemaker or the one blamed when others couldn't control themselves. Maybe you learned to anticipate moods, to silence your own needs, to take the hit just to keep the peace. And now that same pattern shows up again, but this time in a relationship that calls itself love while constantly making you the emotional punching bag. That is not emotional intimacy. It's emotional outsourcing. And no matter how much compassion you have for their pain, you don't deserve to be the one they bleeded onto. Okay, number 5, they isolate you from people who care about you. This can happen slowly. They can make offhand comments about your friends. She's really not good for you, you know. They criticize your family. Your parents are toxic anyway. I'm just trying to protect you, sweetie. They act jealous, irritated, or moody when we make plans that don't include them. They might say it's because they care, but real care doesn't cut us off from the people who love us. And because we want to keep the peace, because we want the relationship to work, we start shifting. You know, we cancel our plans, we stop sharing updates. You downplay connections that once meant a lot to you. And before you even realize it, you're more alone than you've ever been, not because you want to be, but because it starts to feel easier that way. It's less conflict, less guilt. Eventually, they become your only point of emotional connection, the only voice in your ear, the only person whose opinion feels like it matters. And that's not love. That's captivity disguised as closeness. But here's the heartbreaking part. If you grew up in chaos, isolation might not feel like a red flag. It might feel like security, like finally having someone who chooses you above all else, someone who wants you all to themselves. But true love doesn't isolate you. It doesn't cut you off from your support system or ask you to shrink your life to fit someone else's comfort. Isolation isn't intimacy, it's control wrapped in the illusion of devotion. And it's one of the most dangerous signs of a trauma bond. Okay, number 6, you feel addicted to the highs and lows. This one can really be hard to admit. Addiction is, it's not always what we think it is. On the surface, being addicted to the highs and lows can look like passion, intensity, fire, chemistry. But underneath, it's something else entirely. Trauma bonds are deeply psychological, right? The cycle of abuse and reward, the validity, the unpredictability, it creates a powerful chemical loop in your brain, right? It's very volatile. When they're sweet, it feels euphoric, like our nervous system can finally exhale, like you're safe again, right? But when they pull away, criticize, explode, or withdraw, it's like we're starving, panicked, desperate to get back to the good part. And so the cycle begins again, trying to please, to fix, to earn our way back to the version of them that felt like love. But here's what's actually happening. Your brain is flooded with stress hormones during the lows. It's flooded with cortisol, adrenaline. It's flooded with our brain's survival chemicals. Then it's flooded with our brain's relief chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin when the tension breaks. And over time, your body gets addicted, not to the person, but to the chemical, to the relief from the pain they caused. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not broken for feeling stuck. Sit with that for a second, because that's something no one told me when I needed to hear it the most. Your body is caught in a trauma loop, mistaking intensity for intimacy. mistaking the temporary relief of pain for connection, confusing emotional turbulence with emotional depth, thinking the storm is proof of passion. And when your nervous system is wired for survival instead of safety, this cycle doesn't just make sense to us, it feels like home for us. Now, just because it feels familiar doesn't mean it's healthy, and it doesn't mean you're meant to stay in it. Number 7, you start to feel emotionally numb. At some point, the chaos just gets too loud for us, and our system starts to go silent. After so much pain, our nervous system does what it was wired to do. It shuts down to protect us, and we stop reacting. We stop reaching out for support. We stop feeling. We don't cry as much anymore. We feel detached from our body, from our own thoughts, from our own life. We start dreaming about the future because we can barely make it through the present, right? You're surviving, not living. And that numbness, it's not because you don't care. It's not because you've become cold or heartless. It's because caring has cost you way too much. Every time you speak up, it leads to punishment. When every attempt at closeness gets used against you, when our vulnerability is met with manipulation or silence, eventually our body gets the message, shut it all down. It's safer not to feel anything at all. And if you grew up in an environment where emotions were unsafe or ignored, this may feel disturbingly normal. You learned early on to bury your feelings to survive, to go quiet when things get loud, to disappear inside yourself when no one came to comfort you. But numbness is not peace. It's not healing. It's the nervous system saying, I can't take anymore. And if you've been living in that place, cut off emotionally, flat, unable to feel joy or pain, it's not the end of your story. It's a signal from your soul. It is asking for safety, for gentleness, for room to begin to heal. You didn't fail the relationship failed you. Let me say that again so you can really hear it. You didn't fail the relationship failed you. And now, number 8, you hide parts of the relationship from others. You downplay the fights, the tension, the insults. You leave out the details, or you change the story to make it sound like less than it really is. You defend them when others express concern. When someone brings up your relationship, you tense up. You defend what you're silently drowning in because the truth feels too heavy to say out loud. You feel ashamed, conflicted, confused, because there are moments, real moments, when it feels like love. And you don't want people to judge you or judge them or take away the thing you've convinced yourself might still work out. But here's the truth. If you feel the need to hide what's happening, if you're editing your story to make it sound more acceptable, it's not because you're dramatic. It's not because you're overreacting. It's because something is happening that isn't safe. When you start hiding things from others, you often start hiding things from yourself too. You stop telling yourself the truth. You stop trusting your gut. You live in the space between denial and despair, hoping the good will outweigh the bad if you just hang on long enough. But love should never require secrecy, and protecting someone's harmful behavior at the cost of your personal peace isn't loyalty. It's self-abandonment. If you've been quietly hiding the reality of your relationship from people who care about you, please reach out to someone and talk to them. You're not broken, you're not crazy, and this is not your fault. A trauma bond doesn't form because you're weak. It forms because you're wired for connection. And when that need for connection meets consistent harm, the line between love and survival can get painfully blurred. You can heal, you can reclaim your sense of self, and there are plenty of resources out there for you to do just that today. You don't have to navigate it alone. If this video helped you make sense of your experience, or if you know someone who might need to hear this, please consider sharing it. And if you want more content on complex trauma to support your healing journey, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and join me here. There's more to talk about, more to understand, and more room to grow together. So thank you so much for watching. Please take care of yourself. You're worth that and so much more. If this spoke to something deep inside of you, I hope you'll come back. We're building a space where survivors can feel seen, heard, and strengthened without shame. You don't have to be healed to belong here. You just have to show up for yourself.